nowadays when you choose recording, it's so many. It's transcription and it's recording and it's everything. Welcome anyway. My name is Jenny Simonsen. I work for ITS Norway. Intelligent Transport System is a membership organization, and together with other partners, we have this project called NEMU that we will go into today. I hope most of you have been involved and been part of the NEMU program and webinars earlier. I will, for the sake of show you today's program. It was easier said than done. I did share it earlier, didn't manage to put it in full screen, but I hope you can see this one at least for now. So there's always time for talks and questions and remarks. I urge you all to use the chat. I know many of you are very good at using the chat, and anyone feels pointed, please answer in the chat as well. We will have a keynote from Victoire Champenois from DG Move. I'm very much looking forward to that. After her presentation, you will also have time to ask her questions. And I'm sure that the people in our project group will for sure have questions to her as well. And then we will have a short status update from the NEMU project and also a panel discussion. And in this panel discussion, we want you to join. So I think I've said it now 3 or 4 times that I urge you to participate. So I think my message is quite clear on that one. And then we will hear from Søren about next steps and also about what we will do in 2026 when it comes to the NEMU project. But I think without much ado, Victoire, I will give you the word and you can introduce yourself and share your presentation. I'm very pleased that you could join us today. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to all of you. And yeah, thank you for the invitation. Very happy to be here today, and also learn a bit more about the next steps of the project. And I'm here to give you an introduction on the legal framework at European level, what we do and what we have been doing to support a framework for the development of multimodal travel information service. But also I will give you just a tiny bit of flavor on what we are doing on ticketing. On information service, starting with that, we have 3 key pieces of legislation. We have the ITS directive, from which derives the Delegated Act on Multimodal Travel Information Service. And we have another implementing act on which my colleague in the rail team are in the lead, but I will still present you a little bit, called TEL TSI, in the past TAP TSI. We love acronyms, we love to invent new ones as well. And TEL TSI is really about an implementing act of the interoperability directive, really focusing on data sharing in rail. It has just been revised, so I will give you also some element on that. But starting now maybe with the ITS directive, for those who are not familiar with this framework, it's a broad directive that was firstly adopted in 2010, but was just reviewed in 2023. And it really supports the development of services in different areas. You have here on this slide the different priority areas on which we are working. So information and mobility ITS services, which are the most relevant for MMT services. But we also work on travel and traffic management. We are working a bit more in the context of a new ITS working program on enhanced traffic management in particular. The third priority area is road safety and security, SRTI, for those who are familiar with that. And we also work, of course, on the development of specification for CITS services and CCAM, connected and automated mobility. I have slides for each of the priority area, but I will focus mostly on this one The priority area 1 is the area in which we have worked to develop EU-wide multimodal travel information service specification. They were adopted in 2017, and I will detail them in my presentation. And we amended the specification in 2024 to extend the scope and to ensure that service provider data users can also have access to real-time information services. Something that might also be of interest for you, we adopted last year actually the working program for the ITS directive for 2024-2028. And in this priority area 1, we also committed to work on the development of identifiers for multimodal access nodes, which could also very much help service providers to ensure that you have up-to-date information on access nodes in your services and that this is all coordinated and interoperable. I know that in Norway, you have quite an advanced system, and we're basically trying to I would not say replicate that, but see what can be done on this at EU level. So I'll move on to these slides. These are really looking into the other priority area of the ITS directive and are potentially a bit less relevant for today's discussion. But again, if you have any question, happy to come back on this. So priority area 2 on ETIM, 3 on safety and security, and 4 on CITS. Something else I wanted to mention related to the general framework of the ITS directive. So we have specifications that have been developed for each priority area, but in the revision of the directive, we also have a new obligation. This was the core adjustment for the revision, and the obligation is about ensuring that data is digitalized. The logic so far has always been to ensure that data is shared if the data has been already digitized. And now with this change, we have also obligation for member states to make sure that information is available in a machine-readable format. So this is a big change. And you have here a screenshot of Annex 3 of the ITS directive regarding multimodal data. You can see that we are asking member states to digitize information on urban nodes, location of identified access nodes for all scheduled modes. So this is upcoming for existing information in 2026 for urban nodes, and for the whole network for 2028. Then moving on maybe to the core of the discussion today, the Delegated Act on MMTs. As I already explained this, the Delegated Act is in place since 2017 and we revised it in 2024. The key element in the revision was to ensure that data users can have access to real-time, what we call dynamic data sets. And this is always required via the national access point. The objective, of course, is to ensure that passengers can have relevant info, that they can plan their journey seamlessly across Europe and across modes. Something that is important also, I already mentioned it, but all the data that are listed in MMTs have to be shared by data holders only when they already exist in a digital machine-readable format. So in MMTs, there is no obligation to create data. This is limited to the slide that I just showed you earlier on the ITS directive. Here we are only talking about making sure that once you have digital data, this information needs to be accessible via national access point. The scope is only for scheduled transport and for transport on demand. And you also have in MMT certain obligation for service provider to link travel information results and to exchange results for combined cross-border journey planning. Looking a bit more into the detail of the text and what we have. So as mentioned, you have a list in the annex of MMTs of static and dynamic data that need to be made accessible via the national access point. So you have data on location, sorry, there's a couple of typos. I'm noticing them as we speak. I'll correct them afterwards when I share the slide. So you have static data on location search, timetables, network, parking, fares. So here static fares. But we also have requirement for dynamic data on delays, cancellation, availability, accessibility of parking. For vehicle sharing, also about availability of bike, for instance. And we also have a requirement for data holders to share data on occupancy, but this is only so occupancy of the vehicle, how many passengers you have in one vehicle. This is only optional in case member states have opted for this. Something else I want to stress and emphasize is that in the context of MMTs, so all data needs to be accessible via the national access point, but there can be a license linked to the access to those data. So some fees can be requested, and this is not the case in the context of the implementing act on TEL TSI. However, I will explain this to you a bit more in detail. You have similar data type in the TEL TSI Implementing Act, but it's only limited to rail. Here we are talking about multimodal data. Another important point to stress and emphasize, to ensure interoperability, we have requirements how this data needs to be shared, and we have requirements on the standard. So the standard that we refer to are European standard, NETEX, Transmodel for the multimodal information data, and Siri for the real-time data, DATEX2 for road data. We also refer to TAP TSI, but now there is actually a link between TAP and MMTs, and TAPS makes a reference to NETEX, so we just refer to one another. For aviation, we refer to the technical standard published by IATA, and we also refer to the standard of RTTI, so DATEX2 mostly. And for geographical data, we refer to the INSPIRE directive that is actually being revised. So this might also need a bit of adjustment from our side in the future. These slides that are upcoming is just to show you that for each of the data type that is listed in the annex, both static and dynamic, we have some deadline. Most of them, as you can see on this slide, for static, well, all of them actually, for static data have passed. And for dynamic data, we still have until 2028 for certain dynamic data. So we are currently working also based on the ITS report that we have received this year on ensuring proper implementation, ensuring that all the data that has been requested are accessible via an app, and we all know that this is a big challenge. It's not the case at the moment, and there's extra work that is expected from member states and from data holders on this front. This is just to flag also, if you are interested, again, I will share the slide that we have an implementation handbook. So if you want more detail on the delegated act, you can find them in the handbook. And moving on, I don't want to take too much time. I also want to take have a time for question. But as I mentioned, there is really synergies between the MMT's delegated act and the implementing regulation on TEL TSI, previously called TAP TSI, that was just reviewed in February 2026. So my colleagues Jan Semandi is in charge, is in the lead for TEL TSI. You might also know him. What is the objective of TEL? Well, similar objective, we want to support EU-wide multimodal travel information service. They also have a ticketing angle that we don't necessarily have in MMTs. In MMTs, you have requirement to share data on fares, but this is much more pronounced for rail within the TEL TSI. And one of the key objectives also of this implementing act is to support the requirement of Article 9 and 10 of the Rail Passenger Right Regulation, where you have obligation to inform passenger before their trip. I was already referring to this, but we have a slightly different requirement in TEL as regards data sharing. Data also needs to be made accessible via the national access point, but for some of them, so the one that you have listed on this slide, they have to be public and free of charge. So timetable, connection time, accessibility of vehicles, accessibility of station, real-time forecast of train traffic, and train composition. This needs to be free of charge, so no licensing, whereas in MMTs we were talking about licensing for certain type of data. In TEL TSI, I was explaining it also earlier, you have some requirement for ticketing, and for ticketing you need to have access to tariff data, in particular real-time tariff data. This is still in TEL subject to contractual agreements, and this implementing act will be further complemented by the upcoming proposal on the single digital and booking ticketing regulation. Happy to talk about it, but we are planning to adopt this regulation in May. The reference standards, they are already referenced in MMTs, NETEX and SIRI, so NETEX for static data, SIRI for dynamic data. And our colleagues also made a reference to the transmodel-based API, which is currently being developed in the context of the SEN project, which is the EU Edit project, making sure that you can have a ticketing API based on transmodel. I'm almost at the end of my presentation. I just wanted to share a last word. Looking at it, it was really clear to me, but looking at it now, I think it looks really complex. Just to say that MMTs, all the other specification of the ITS directive and TEL are supported by a project with all member states funded by the Connecting Europe facility. And this project is a NAPCOR project. It's really important for us because it really brings together all implementers to ensure that we can address the implementing hurdles, both as regard, for example, standardization. There is a specific working group working on multimodal standards. It's the working group 4.3. It doesn't appear so clearly again on this slide, apologies, but happy also to put you in touch with the leaders of those working groups if you need. So they're working on the implementation challenges on issues related to standard, related to metadata, related to access to data also. So in some cases, NAPs are struggling to access the data from data holders. And you can see here that we also have a specific working group for multimodal mobility. It's the working group 2. So there's both horizontal working on multimodal and on road data, but also you have specific pillars on data standard and architecture, data provision, and also making sure that we can support national enforcement bodies and that we can support member states in their implementation work and to make sure that they comply properly with legislation. Voilà, I hope that I was clear. It was maybe a lot of information, but happy to break it down and go through questions. I see there's already comments in the chat as well.
Thank you so much, Victor. We can share the presentation afterwards. So if you can send that to me in PDF format, that would be lovely, and then we can share that one.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering if there's someone else, and only started asking the questions, but maybe if we start looking at a little bit in some of them. Can mobility data owners limit the completeness of data exposed to NAP?
No. So you mean whether data holders can limit, but what would they limit, Soren?
Yes.
Can you maybe
Søren,
specify?
you have been...
What they would limit, for instance, there are some that I mean, the whole idea is that if the data is digitalized in their own environment, they should also be digitalized in the open access points. So, for instance, some of the countries, you only are converting DTFS information. That means that you do not have information on the things that are necessary to do booking and payment. That is tariffs, fares, and also availability of seats and things like that. So something which is covered in the full Nordic profile. So by limiting the profile, you're actually limiting. So it means that the owner of the data has more data than they are sharing, more relevant data than they are sharing. So that's
Yes,
the question.
okay. Yeah, I understand your point, but in the way you were explaining it, there were also different types of data sets. So there's indeed tariff data, but in MMTs the requirement is specifically on static tariff, and you were referring to other types of data sets as well. So normally you cannot, the objective would not be to limit the completeness, but I hear your point that the fact that you can use maybe an alternative standard, and this is why we are promoting NETEX and Siri to make sure that there's a harmonized data sharing and that there's no limitation in as much as possible. Sorry, I'm not sure I answered properly, because in your question, what I heard was also that there was different type of data sets.
Well, there are different kind of data sets, but I think we can take that offline. The biggest challenge, and that's also why we have the NAP Core project, is that each country has made their own definition of what is a full data set. And that is the main problem, and you will hear later that this is indeed what is the most problematic thing going for us in the NEMU project. As soon as we cross the border, like you still have 220 volts. It's just a different way of putting in the plug. I mean,
Yes, okay.
It's not the same.
Sorry, I
Data
hadn't
standard.
properly. Yeah, I hadn't properly understood. So in terms of harmonizing the profiles, then, and indeed this
Absolutely.
work. Yes, and indeed this work is being carried out in the context of NAPCOR. And I thought you were referring to legal obligation, but it's more
Well,
in the context of the implementation. We're trying to push for harmonized EU profile as much as possible. Yes.
and the challenge is that many of the actors are doing what they can to avoid to fully comply. That's the challenge. Anyway, if I should just have another question, and I just put them in there, and please everybody else do that as well, or just raise your hand to stop me talking. So
I can second that.
The other thing would what happens to the regulation of third-party booking, payment, and ticketing, which is the real value generator of multimodal planning, that is to allow people to, when they found the travel that they like, they just book it and go. That was formerly known at the MDMS. Where are you in the Commission on those initiatives? What can we expect in the near future?
Yep. So I didn't mention the whole picture in my presentation. Sorry for that. But indeed, we will be adopting on the 13th of May. This is the latest information. It can still move a bit, but this is really the objective. 13th of May, a ticketing package. And as part of the ticketing package, you will have 3 regulation. I mentioned already the single digital booking and ticketing regulation, which is really about ensuring that you have contractual agreement in rail. We know that at the moment, both on the side of operators and vertically integrated platforms, you have barriers for contractual agreement, and we're trying to push to lift those barriers. Then we will have a regulation on MDMS, looking really at basically establishing a code of conduct for digital ticketing platform so that they cannot abuse their power when they are in contractual agreement with an operator for ticketing. We also take into account elements on neutral display, making sure that they share back data with authorities, that they respect friends principle. This is inspired both by the DMA and the Data Act. Second pillar. And the last pillar is a revision of the rail passenger right regulation. All of this comes from, well, we hear that citizens have challenges when they want to book tickets. We did a Eurobarometer that confirmed that, but also our president in her political guidelines emphasized, passenger, they struggle when they miss rail connection. You need to do something about it. And this is a revision of the rail passenger rights, making sure that you have equivalent rights when you combine different rail operators. Voilà. I hope I clarified.
Yeah, I'll be counting the days until I see that text. I look forward very much to that then. And then anybody else have any questions? I'll let it go back to Jenny.
Now is a perfect time to ask, as we are so lucky to have someone from the DG Move here in the same webinar, just to see this from a European perspective. While somebody else dares to ask questions and not just the certain, even though his questions are good, I'm just wondering, like, the biggest kind of a pain points or barriers when you were presenting the list of what you want to achieve, and then the one slide. So what? Yes, on the if we move more towards the end, there was a list of all the. Was it from the NAP? Yeah, for instance, that one. The previous slide. Yeah. So like pain points of barriers, the biggest one, where do we start? Or maybe this one here. Where do we kind of start from kind of achieving the goal?
Yeah, and I think this is a very valid question, and we were asking ourselves this question every step of the way when we were preparing the initiative on ticketing, because there's no sense in going for supporting the development of more advanced ticketing services if you don't have this first building block on information that is properly implemented. And the first key element on which we really hope NAPCOR can help us deliver is making sure that data is on the NAP, is accessible via the NAP. And so reaching out to data holders, and here we see a big discrepancy in the different member states. So reaching out to data holders, potentially also simplifying process, making sure that they know how to use the standards. The Data for PT project had a helpline, so maybe continuing this via NAPCOR. This, in my view, is the first point, the key element to answer.
That's a very valid answer. And then I think, is it right to say that the ones that are not complying to the standards or not, say, or finding other means or being hesitant or delayed, that means they're actually losing out quite quickly in the development, as the others that are using NAP and are heavily involved are getting the benefit of actually talking about seamless and connected mobility.
I think there's part of that in making sure that you have a good implementation. You need to show use cases and you need to show the added value and why it's important to use the NAP. And sometimes if you are, a data holder in whichever member states, you don't necessarily have the overview and the understanding of this added value, or for your business, maybe it doesn't, there's more cost than benefit. And so this is also why at one point as Commission, you have seen now most of the deadline have passed for static data. We will also need to come potentially with infringement procedure. We will enter into discussion with member state because if we see that there is no willingness and no implementation, we need to act to make sure that this legislation is not, in French we say lettre morte. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Brede, you had your hand raised, but you removed it.
Yeah, Victor answer most of it, and I can take the rest in the panel later.
Okay.
Save time. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much, Victor, for your presentation and your time. I hope you can stay along a little bit. That would be lovely. And if you have questions or remarks, please ask as well.
Super. Thank you very much. I'm staying.
Thank
you.
Thank you so much. Then we continue with the project status and learning so far. I don't know, Brede, is it have we decided on the order? I have Johanna from Matkahuolto to start. So if we can, or have you coordinated yourself who will start?
There's no coordination, so if Johanna is first, then let's hear from the Finnish side. It's also from the Finnish side we have the latest news.
Okay, then that makes a great plan. Johanna, if you're here,
Yes.
please share your presentation.
I will try to get it to the Teams.
Yeah, well, that's a good start.
and welcome, Johanna.
Thanks. Yeah, I had some problems in the beginning. I hope at least you can hear my voice. I have one video, and I don't think you can hear the voice of the video, but let's try.
We can see your presentation and hear
Great.
you.
Thank you. So this is just the title slide, so I will move forward. Just a reminder, and actually some couple of news. So for those who have been in the previous webinars, so in this project, Matkahuolto is integrating ferry tickets to Sweden and Estonia into our app, which is nowadays called Matkat. It used to be called in English Trips and Tickets, but now we changed the name, and the name is the same in all languages. Matkat is Finnish and means trips or journeys or whatever. So this is a new from compared to the last time, and the other thing is that we have finally launched the sales of the ferry tickets, beginning from the Viking Line tickets, and the two other ferry companies will follow, hopefully in May. We are just finalizing the agreements with those at the moment, Tallink, Silja, and Eckerö. So this is where we are now. So now our Matkat app includes, in addition to all of Finnish public transport, so we also have the ferry tickets to Sweden and Estonia. And here are just some direct translations from our website. We also launched a marketing campaign in beginning of March when we started selling the ferry tickets. And the marketing campaign currently is only in Finnish, but I think we will have it in English soon. It's a pity that we didn't have the English marketing websites or videos so that I could present those directly in this webinar, but now I just translated the content of our website. So here you can see some pictures that we are using, and this is how we are talking about this news on our website and in social media, and also in some TV commercials and all kinds of that are running now. So now you can travel to Åland, Stockholm, and Tallinn with our app, and in addition to all public transport in Finland. And you can also book the meals and cabins. And these are the arguments that we use. Why to buy ferry tickets with Matkat app? Because it saves time. You don't need to compare the schedules and prices of different services in their different channels, and you save effort. You can buy everything at once. Don't need to pay separately. And then you have everything in one app when you are traveling, so you can follow the trip and open the needed tickets whenever you are jumping into the new vehicle. And here again we have a picture of people being in the harbor of Helsinki. And here we have a picture, you don't know, of course, or the ones who are from Finland, of course, know that this picture has been taken in the main railway station, Helsinki. So we really want to show now that we are also other tickets than bus tickets in our app, because that has been our image that Matkahuolto is only selling bus tickets in Finland, but now we actually are selling all kinds of public transport tickets, local public transport, trains, and now even ferries. And here's how it goes. So of course it's not new to you. So you search the route and compare the alternatives, and then you can buy the tickets. And then also you can you can check in when it comes to the ferry tickets. So we have the QR code in the app, so you can do your check-in with the QR code, and then you can print the cabin keys and meal tickets, and then you can hop on board. And now let's see what happens if I try to. So click the video. I think you can't hear the voices, but let's see. You can at least see. Oh.
No. We can't hear the voices, so
Yeah.
the sound.
Yeah, it's only me who could hear the voice.
Yes.
Anyway, you can hear the bus voice, and then the train noise, and then the ferry making the the sound when they come to the harbor. So that's the idea, that all the different modes, and the Finnish title there says that on the land, sea, and on the rails, and all the tickets with one app. So. But these kinds of things we are now doing. So we have launched the marketing campaign. Here, oh, somebody could hear the video. Interesting.
Apparently this was just me. So so sorry about that.
Oh, nice.
So
okay.
Disregard.
So this was the reason why I kind of was a little bit late in the beginning, because I was kind of worrying that how this thing goes. Okay, but here's some screenshots from the app. So there you can see a trip from Stockholm to our office in Vantaa. We are actually moved to Vantaa now. We are not located in the city center of Helsinki anymore. So here you can see that there you can get different options. The one that you see on the map is the one going through Turku, but the other one, the third option, is actually a ferry to Helsinki. There you can see also the beginning of the route. So you can see the cabins there, and then you can change the cabin. So for instance, there's the inside for 4 people and an allergy cabin, and then you can also book the meals, and then some other services like pet tickets. I found the picture very nice there. So this is what we are now able to do. The funny thing is that we are not able to sell place reservations for trains yet, but we can do that for ferries. This is very interesting. Also, some bus companies, we also introduced the place selections that you can actually book and choose the place where you want to be seated within our app. That wasn't possible before, but now we have also introduced that. And here we can see the schedule where we are. So now we have finalized the development work and started the operational phase of the project. So marketing and selling. We have already sold few tickets, ferry tickets. I'm not going into the details how many, but there are more than one. But this is the first month still, so let's see how it develops. And after this, of course, the next year is that we are going to collect experiences and how things will turn out to be, and also we are more into study the transformation to the NetX and Siri formats, which is of course ahead for us also. Now we have only used GTFS so far. Some learnings. First, business and policy side. Of course, well, the negotiating the resale agreements, that's a thing that still takes quite a lot of time because there are no standard and the market is still in the learning phase. But now we actually, during this project, we created our own general template, which is also useful when we are trying to communicate how we see that these things should be agreed. Another thing that we had to decide during this project is that travel change from A to B, including cabin and meals, are not considered as a travel package that are regulated under the Act of Travel Packages or Combined Travel Services, because we don't want to get the responsibility of that regulation. But this is how we now assume how it is. Of course, there is no confirmation for that, but we hope we at least start in this way. Then, of course, this one still remains a big issue. With ferry companies, we have been able to agree a commission, which is and usually with private companies, it is quite obvious, but then the problem still remains that we cannot get we cannot cover the costs of the payment services for the public transport services of the PTAs, and that's still something that we hope that it will change in the future. So our suggestion is that there should be some kind of regulation saying that there is some kind of a minimum commission which covers at least the average unit costs of the payment services. And why? And actually the current situation is that there is actually now there is a disincentive for selling the PTA's tickets because and the fact that we don't get any commission, that actually means that there's an entrance fee for reselling these tickets. So the PTAs actually receive a bigger margin from tickets sold by a third party than from the ones sold in their own channel. So we need to kind of try extra hard because we need to cover that first, and then only that we can start covering other costs. And the thing is that if private resellers are not incentivized to do this, so then there's the question that will then public authorities who are owning their own channels include private services in their channels. So who will be then developing these services if there are disincentives to do that? Well, we have been able to do this despite of this situation, because we have revenues also from the sales of the ticket and information systems. We do not only do resale business. This is only a tiny part of our business currently. And then we have the 90-year history in offering a sales channel for bus tickets, which means that we have a strong brand and existing customer volumes in Finland. So it's easier for us to do this. And of course, projects like NEMU are helping in this. But still,
time. So if you can wrap up and we can give the word to Brede and Søren.
Yes, sorry. Okay, I'll jump to technical issues. So we learned to use the transit priority groups, which is very important, and this is OTP related. And it's very important to show all the different, in this case, 3 different ferry companies, even though OTP would only be happy to show only one of them because the other ones are too similar. So this is very interesting, and this has not been done, for instance, in Finland in the context of OpenTrip before. The one issue we ran into is that the digital location of the ferry stops is something that needs to be discussed, because currently they are located in the ferry company's GTFS data, where the cars drive into the ferry, and this is of course not very useful for public transport users. And the correct place would be at the entrance of the terminal. And then the long-distance ferries would actually require their own mode in the OTP. Now the long-distance and short-distance ferries are considered as one mode, and actually the transfer or boarding time is very different, and it would be very nice to set different slack times or boarding times to these. And very quickly about the service delivery. So the question that we are always told when we present this thing, is there some kind of a guarantee that if something goes wrong? No, there is not any guarantee yet. So this is still to be planned in the future. And we think that this is not a hindrance to start doing this, because it's not the case for other travel chains either. So if you are combining buses or trains or local public transports, so there you cannot have the guarantee either. So why would that stop us doing this with ferries? But still, of course, this is something that would be nice to develop in the future. But everything cannot be done all at once. So things happen like step by step. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much, Johanna. Shall we just take the questions when we sit together, Søren?
I think we can do that.
Yes, that's okay to me.
Yep. I think we can do that, but also just to let the audience know that Matkahulltur is actually a private corporation. It is probably the most comprehensive mass offering in Europe, with a national coverage of public transport and long-distance buses, and now also cross-border ferries. So, and I can attest to that it works. I have actually booked the trip in less than 5 minutes, including the ferry, a public transport transfer in Turku, a long-distance bus to the airport, and from the airport, the local public transport to Matkahulltur's office. So indeed, a mass offering for both public and private operators in one go. So I think that's a remarkable accomplishment to you guys. And now over to Entour.
Yeah, thank you. You can see my screen. Do you see yourself on the screen, or do you see only the presentation?
We see a lot of things, so just carry on.
Yeah. This is something that have been shown before on the top. Maybe this is working. Do you see the screen is dark?
Yeah.
Yep.
The NSR, the stop place registry, is the one that Victoire mentioned in her presentation, which is in place in Norway. It's under development in Finland, and also for European Railway as we speak. Then we have the timetable data we get in from the different sources, and the real-time data, and mobility operators are sending us GPS. NetX is the main purpose format for us, and we also try to use NetX from different national access points in Norway. But what we have achieved so far in the NEMU project is that we have Øresundstog, The data is coming through Samtrafiken in Sweden. We have Flixbus in production with high quality NetX. Actually, we have a lot of the Flixbus European network delivered to us in NetX, and it's searchable. And we have, since beginning of December, also Snälltåget, a small railway operator in Sweden, operating on available tracks when other rail companies are not operating there. And they travel from northern Sweden to Austria and Innsbruck, actually. So you can now, in Entur APIs and channels and our users, search from any place in Norway to Innsbruck. And in the NEMU project, we have developed the Entur Bifrost, which is in the middle here. So we get offers. We can reserve offers through a third-party ticketing system, and we can distribute the tickets. And we can take care of the customer also during and after the journey, together with the different operators that we sell tickets for. So here is an example from Kristiansand, southern part of Norway, to Copenhagen. This was in production early last year, so almost a year. Where one of these examples here is from Kristiansand to Oslo, then a train from Oslo to Gothenburg Central Station, and a train further to Copenhagen. And you see here that we can sell the tickets combined with a private bus operator, Flixbus, Norwegian rail operator operating from Oslo to Gothenburg, and the Swedish rail operator from Gothenburg to Copenhagen in one go. So this is mainly what we have achieved so far in the NEMU project. When we standardize this, I had the opportunity and last week to be in Transport Ticketing Global in London, where we demonstrated how to use the ATB app. It's a local app for a PTA in the Trondheim region in Norway. They developed together with Entur the TOMP API, where we get the GPFS data I talked about in the earlier slides, so we can show available vehicles. And we can use the TOMP API to unlock it, to see how much it costs, pay for it, and park it. And last week it was Transport Ticketing Global in London. Voi is operating in there. Voi is not in production in ATB in Trondheim yet. It will come soon after Easter. So what we did there was demonstrate using the ATB app in London, operating an e-scooter we picked up from the street. And it works. So when we standardized, this is an example of what we really want to achieve with the NEMU project, using your local app when you are traveling in a different region or country. So lessons learned for us so far is the open data from the national access point in Europe today. Based on different formats, have different legacy requirements into the data. So it's difficult to use it, and sometimes it's impossible to use the open data that is accessible through the national access points today. When we get the data to work, the devil's in the details. We need also to secure that we use the data correct. And we also need both systems on both ends to make minor changes to have it work and scale, and so we can take good care of the customers during their travels. I think I can stop there to save time for the panel.
Okay, great, Brede. Jenny, can I take it from here a little bit?
Yes, you can. That's what I was expecting, I mean.
Okay. So just to we'll kind of have a loose panel discussion. Of course, Johanna, Brede, and Victoire are the prime victims, but feel free to raise your hand and come in with questions and comments for the discussion. So Johanna and Brede, could you kind of, from what we have learned here in the Nordics, and if we see ourselves as probably the most advanced pilot of the MMTIS regulation, what's the good things? We can see the result of that, but what are the main challenges where you really are looking for assistance from the regulators, since and regulation, of course, is only necessary because the market will not act itself. It is counteracting to some extent, you could actually claim. So what is your hope and best advices for the EU Commission?
Yeah, I can start there. The biggest obstacle and maybe also a blocker today is technical. That we have data that is not interoperable and usable across borders. And when we solve that problem and get data into our systems, and when our data provider is able to deliver the data the right way, it takes us 30 minutes and we have it in production and can trip plan on it across Nordic. Then the next hurdle is popping up. We need an agreement with every stakeholders. And there is no standardized way to make those agreements. So that's maybe something to discuss when we have Victoire here on the next step. Because I think we have what we need in MMTs, but we need to give the stakeholders in Europe time to implement it the correct way. And also ourselves within the standardization to agree on the right unified profiles, such things. But when those things are in place, technically, this can scale pretty quick across Europe. But then we also need who have access to sell what kind of products from different stakeholders across Europe. Dig into that question. Yeah.
So maybe we should take the first input from Johanna and then maybe have a reaction from Victoire.
Yes, I agree with Brede here that, of course, the agreement thing I already mentioned in my presentation. That's the biggest thing for us, and we have also now raised the issue also inside Finland, also that question, and we need to have some kind of common understanding how the contracts or agreements should be made, and also that takes into account the commission thing that I mentioned, but also how quickly the operators need to respond, because if there's only like obligation to offer the API, but there is no like time limit or something like that, so then the operators might just be quiet. So all kinds of these kinds of issues, and we already had some kind of a discussion also in Finland about this with different stakeholders, that what needs to be done, and we can do, of course, something within Finland, but of course if we want to solve these problems in the cross-border travel, then we need the EU regulation as well. And also the EU regulation would also then, of course, help the regulation within the countries. But of course, the data issue is, you need to have the data first, and then comes the agreement side. But the data we have already regulated. It's just that we haven't implemented what is regulated. But now the agreement side, there is no regulation even. So then we need to start working on that.
So maybe it's the questions a little bit to the MMTIS on the data quality, and then on the future regulation that you mentioned, Victoire, coming up in May. So any immediate reaction, Victoire?
Yeah, exactly. On the first pillar, on making sure that you have data, that it's interoperable. This is what I was referring to making sure that we have proper implementation of MMTIS. And we know that from the Commission side, we also need to step up our game, as I was explaining now, to enter into discussion with member states, potentially for future infringement if we see that there is no action. This is the first thing. On the standardized agreement, exactly. This is also where MDMS, the ticketing package, come in play. However, at the moment, the way we are constructing it would be that you have certain obligation for players who have big market power, big market presence, to impose condition on operators or on platform. But what I hear from you is that you would want standardized agreement for any case so that it could facilitate just the discussion, even if there is no market power imbalance. So this is maybe a bit different to what we are doing, even if potentially the fair condition that we will set out in legislation could inspire any other voluntary agreement as well. Yeah, this is a bit what I'm thinking as I was listening to you in terms of what is missing from our side.
Mm-hmm. You can think about some more questions, Breda and Johanna, but Victoire, in what way could we be more helpful from the NEMU project also to maybe be a test ground for your thoughts and ideas for future regulation? I mean, already now we have kind of, well, what is it we're calling it? The sales interface for cross-border Bifrost. We have tried to think out in the future, reach out into the future and think how future regulation for sales, booking and sales could work for cross-border journeys. How can we be of assistance to you guys in Brussels and elsewhere in Europe for you to learn from our successes, but definitely also our failures?
I think a lot of you from this team are also involved in NAPCOR, and this is also where also the groundwork is happening. So getting involved also with working group leaders. Belgium is in the lead for the multimodal working group. They will have a workshop this week. I'm still in last week mode, but this week. So getting involved with them, sharing exactly what you shared, but I think this is also all the elements that you mentioned are what we see in other projects and on the ground, the issue of data quality, data interoperability. Something I wanted to flag that you have this in mind also properly is the scope that we're looking at. For MMTs, we're looking at urban, but for the ticketing package, we will be mostly looking at long distance and regional. And I know this is maybe a bit counterintuitive, because when you do a journey from A to Z, you need to have all the legs involved. But we also have challenges in terms of subsidiarity for the legislation. So at the moment, just to flag that, we will be most probably only looking at regional long distance journeys. Because I heard you, Søren, we all want to achieve this A to Z journey, this seamless information provision, but voilà, there are also limitations to what we can do most probably at European level.
Yeah, I think what we are seeing in on the Nordic, I mean, Johanna from Finland is of course benefiting from the Transport Act, which is live in Finland, which required the PTAs to have open APIs. So they're benefiting from that. In Norway, they're benefiting from that. They on a national level has made national planning and ticketing, as we have done also in Denmark, where we also have on a national level. So for us, we do not distinguish between local and long distance transport. One cannot exist without the other. I'm not going to sleep at a rail station. I'm going somewhere else. So it's kind of I have this opinion that somebody wants to delay things that are inevitable, that I should be able to go from door to door in one go. And get the navigation, including the last steps I need to walk. And it is indeed technically possible. That's what we have shown, both from the whole of Norway to Copenhagen and the whole of Finland to Stockholm. And thank you, Johanna. Of course, you're also doing Tallinn. I forgot about that. So great work. So yeah, Brede.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It should be great to also have the regulation in place to also get access to APIs to also sell local and more rural transportation. But what we from a NEMU project contribute to here and how we work, we do the implementation of Bifrost in a way that we don't have the booking API for the transport-based part today. But we do our best to learn and use as much transport-based concepts as possible. And we work, spend a time to work with the Quorum project, which is now been replaced by the EU DIT that also Victoire talked about. To within the next 2 years define a European standard for distributed booking API. And for that work, the small all kinds of modes will be included in that specification and standard. So in that standard, you can sell e-scooters, local traffic, long distance traffic, and you can also hopefully there sell combination of them. So a long distance actor can get agreement with a small actor and get some special products, and that standard should fulfill that as well. So it will be interesting to discuss more later. What's the reason behind that we are not including the small one, and is there a time and place to actually think about include everything?
I don't think it was a question. It was more a supportive comment. Any reaction, Victoire? Or?
No, yes, I should have presented it just to say it's also because I mentioned subsidiarity, but it's also we're working in terms of steps. So let's see also, we will have the co-decision. Let's see how this evolve firstly. And then if we only remain with the same scope, let's see how far we can go in the second step in a potential revision of the framework. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, just to everybody, I mean, we have an obligation, or we have taken an obligation on us in the NEMU project to promote widely that we are using the regulated standards to do our business. I mean, they're there, so why not use them? You have to do them anyway. And we are obligated to come around to everybody who is interested to share what we're doing. And by sharing, we mean it really. I mean, you can go to GitHub and find most of what we're doing free and open source. So don't be shy. Just beg, steal, and borrow. And we have a question. Bertrand, is that you? You had a question? Would you like to come live?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Can you say
for
a little bit where you're from, Bertrand?
Yeah, we are from Montreal in
Oh,
Canada. Yes,
welcome.
I'm with my colleague Marina Romanova. So we are from the company called Here We Go, and we are working since the year 2019 on global integrated mobility project. And we came to attend this meeting mostly to learn from what is done in the Nordic European countries, mostly for curiosity. And we say congratulations to the MacTac app, because we have seen the remarkable work they have done, and we say congrats. We at Here We Go, we are taking this challenge to another way, because when we see all the regulation, all the standardization, complexity, etc., we see it will be very difficult to take the operator and to align them with the regulation, and at the same time be able to build an ecosystem of mobility in this kind of architectural thinking. So that's why since 2019 we've been working on another paradigm, different. And today we have developed an engine that is called the Virtual Integrated Ticketing Engine. Something new. We have never spoke about it before, just with a couple of insiders. The first time we have presented it to the mobility community was 3 weeks ago at the IT Trans in Germany. We made a demo proving that we can integrate all of the mobility at the global scale without having to interconnect the underlying system, the API, etc. What we do is the virtualization. That technology today works with all the public transit systems around the globe. We can integrate them by just few configurations. It's an intelligent algorithm that works, and that gives us the ability to accomplish it. And we do the same for the parkings. So with that engine, any operator can virtualize his services without having to invest hundreds of millions, years of development. It's fast. It takes maximum, for a very big city like Montreal, it can take maximum 1 month to be totally operational. So we came here by curiosity, because we was looking to see what is going on. Is it the same way of doing the integration? Because we have seen, me personally, I've been following a Finnish company called WIM that went bankrupt something like 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Despite massive investment, years of research and development, we know the outcome, we know the result. And that's why we came, because we wanted to see if there was something changing. But what we can realize is that fundamentally, there is not a big difference of what have been done in the past and what the European Union is trying to do, is to try to build a standard on the old way of building the systems. And we know the policymakers just can make the policy based on what they know. But we have something to share. Our technology is open to anyone willing to see how it works. And we came here by curiosity, and at the same time, just to tell to anybody around this meeting that we are open to show it and to share it.
Great, Bertrand. I think if you could in the chat just give a link to where people might want to continue interaction with you, that would be great. I think on the WIM case, that was I think the challenge with them, and I think that will be with everybody that goes into this space. And Johanna has also described it beautifully earlier in the meeting, is the business case. If the actors are not willing to pay a reasonable pay for the services that they're getting from a third party selling their ticket, then there will be no third party selling tickets, because there is no business. And the whole agenda is that the third-party agents like Matko Hulto and also Entour is that they can only earn money by selling others' tickets. They do not have their own. I mean, Matko Hulto has their own tickets, but they have decided purposely that they would get more business by having showing the full picture, because real alternative is that people buy a car and then there's no business for anybody. So I think the learnings from WIM was that they were simply starved out of business because they could not get into a sustainable funding, only funding via investors' money. So that's my take on it. Brede, Johanna, Victoire, any comments?
Well, if I first.
Yeah, you first.
Something?
So yeah, and of course the business case was more on regional or urban travel when it comes to WIM. So and now Matkahuolto is actually what we are doing is the travel change and the single tickets throughout the whole country, and that's a little bit different. And as I already mentioned in my presentation, so we have the benefit that we have already been here for 90 years, and that helps us in that. So it's very difficult to enter the retail of public transport tickets market without having any backbone or anything or public funding like Entour has. So it's very difficult to just to start creating a business only from the resale or retail business. So that's the thing.
Yeah, great. I can see in the chat that Marco has a question. Would you like to formulate it, Marco, or should I?
Yes, you may formulate that. Main question is about these commissions, because almost every webinar we have some kind of discussion around commissions, and we used to have actually in Finland almost all HSL used this R-kiosk reseller organization, and they got quite good commissions, and but they kind of stopped that during Mass Global's kind of invention to market. And also nowadays we have some cities, for example city of Tampere and some minor cities, that are paying commission for those resellers, but they are not paying commission for Matkahuolto. And my question is, could it be one of our recommendation of this NEMU project to kind of promote and motivate this development, that all our public transport organizations should or could pay if they want to promote this kind of interoperability? They could kind of pay this commission.
Yeah, I don't think, Victoire, did we lose you, or did you just go off picture? But I need to.
Yes, I have some issue with my connection, so I was keeping the camera off. But I hear you well. Don't worry. Yes.
So did you hear the question from Marco?
Yes, on the commission fees.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it could also be interesting to learn from you what the explanation from those actors who don't want to share commission for third parties. What is their rationale for that?
Well, from what we have seen, and again, we were looking at a more not necessarily the urban scope, but that there's many actors also who are vertically integrated. So they have the prime in the operational service and in the distribution service. And they are very keen also to maintain this advantage. And so this is one of the elements for which we see that the commission fee is very low for the service. Another reason also is sometimes that operators, they don't necessarily see the added value of being distributed by a third party. And there's also, so they might be willing to share some type of tickets, but not all types of tickets, because for certain, the most commercially sold one, they know that they can distribute it themselves. So this is the second reason, and I think the final reason that we have identified is related to sometimes also just the fear of being redistributed. And because distribution is not only about really data sharing, but there's a lot of other elements in place related to tax rights, liability. So the fear that someone else would sell you, and that there might be also challenges related to that distribution. So I think, Soren, that's the three key elements that I would see why operators are reluctant and what this impact therefore commission fees. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's typically when the people selling tickets are also providing the service or is associated. But that is of course protection of own business. I can understand that, but I think we have some common goods that are a little bit more broad than that, serving those companies' own interest.
Yes, and that becomes really a challenge when you are distributing certain operators but not others as well. No? So you pick and choose as a distributor. That's really a problem.
And that is in contradiction with the MMTIS regulation, where you are not allowed to put some offerings in front of others except for what the customer wants to see. So, yeah, but any reaction or were you just no reaction?
No.
We are coming towards the end. I have a hand from Manuela. Could you be short in your comments or question? Hi, Manuela.
I'll and you decide whether we have enough time to answer. First of all, good to see you, and I'm really excited to follow your achievements. So first question is for Matt Cahoot. Most of the questions are towards you. Do you display mainly routes for which you sell tickets? Second question, how did you overcome the different currencies? Obviously, you overcame the issue with transport data, but how about the currencies in the different countries? Thirdly, refunds. Do you stick to the refund policies of the individual transport operators, or you have created your own refund policy which is applicable for all, and you ask the operators to stick to your policy? The business model, basically, do you rely, apart from the commissions that you get from the sales, do you rely on these external packages that you showed us?
Can we take one question at a time?
Well,
I think you only have time to respond to one of the questions because we have to close.
I mentioned also you pick which is most important, and I guess that we can continue communication apart from
I'll try to. So the cancellation didn't have time in my presentation, but it's done manually. But we are relying on we are copying the same terms that the ferry companies have. So if the passenger wants to cancel the trip, we make the refund on the same basis as the ferry companies have, and they are of course different. This is not what we like at the moment, but this was the thing how we now started, that we started this way. And then other questions was.
I think we do this. We do the same in Norway, where we also use the refund rules from the different actors, but we want to use APIs to do it automatically.
Yeah, we don't. have yet. Not all the ferry companies have the API for that. Some of them have, but not all. So this is we need to.
So manual. You do it manual. So far.
Yeah, manually. So you cannot, just click a button in the app. You have to contact the customer service, and then they can do it there. But anyway, the same terms apply. So so they calculating the refund there. This is of course not something we like to do in the future.
Okay.
So we haven't coded everything yet, I guess.
Pilot's a pilot.
Manuela, we know you from before and appreciate your work down south. Feel free to contact Johanna and Brede at any time for getting a more complete answer, and that goes for everybody. Yes. We're here to help. And I really have to close this session now. So thanks to Brede, Johanna, and Victoire for standing up for the questions. And I'll just say a few things, and then we'll come to a closing of this webinar. So thank you, everybody, for your contribution.
Just a short note, so that maybe Bertrand can write your question or comment in the notes, because you still have your hand up. So because we don't, yeah, that would be good,
because we really need to close a bit on time. Do you see a presentation now?
Yes.
Good. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going to happen after the NEMU project, and we are so lucky that we have a project called the NEMU RIC, which is a combination of the ITS organization in the Nordics, and we have taken upon us to not only do the NOMAD and the NEMU project, but also future projects up to 2030 to accelerate the transition towards planning, booking, and payment in one go, including cross borders. So we're now looking more into how do we define the next projects, because we want to get the funding for more projects. We've opened the corridors, we're not through yet. Here are some examples of some projects that at least I have in my head, and maybe somebody else have some different projects. As long as they go in the same direction, I'm happy. But I think we need a pan-Nordic collaboration to facilitate the mass roaming, and this is about the things that we learned earlier about that the problems of who do you get in contact with for contracts and services. How do we deal with Finland selling tickets in Norway and vice versa? The other thing is expanding, of course, the 2 corridors that we have now opened to full coverage in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, which could be an exciting project in itself, which of course required a commitment from Denmark and Sweden to participate on top of Finland and Norway. We have also already started discussion with the Baltics in the Nordic Plus environment to see how we could expand into the Baltics. Now we are already in Tallinn, thanks to Matka Hulto, but we could go further. Another thing is, as Brede mentioned, DRT modes is a thing. Demand responsive modes, and it should be possible when we come to 2030 from a Finnish app to get a scooter share or a car share when you are visiting in Oslo, and of course get that booking in Finnish and pay in euros. So that's, again, something that we need to get into some piloting with, and we have the TOMP APIs, we have other EU standard APIs for that. And then, of course, the luxury version is to expand what we're doing in the Nordics to the rest of Europe, and there we are looking for regions in Europe to join us in that effort. So that's basically what I would like to share with you. We have a few constraints. That is, we don't like that somebody is developing something that they are selling for profit afterwards. What you're doing in here is something that is based on open standards, and for as much as possible, the outcome of what we're doing should be open source and available for others to pick up and use. So this is how we operate, and this is maybe a little bit controversial, but that's how we like it. So at least if you are happy with that, then just get in contact with us and start discussing forming new consortia so that we can get full, because we really want to get full value for all the money that is being invested in getting data correct in the National Access Point. So thank you very much for that. And that means that we come to a closing of the session. Jenny?
Yep, I will just share the next one immediately in the chat so you can register for the next NEMU webinar. Thank you so much for all that had discussions or feedback. We have had discussions in the project group to actually keep this in 2 hours. And I was like, no, we have enough time to do it in 1.5 hours. But I can see with all the comments and the feedback that we really should extend this to 2 hours in order to actually accommodate all the projects, all the comments and feedback, because there are a lot of interesting feedback that you guys have. So thank you for that. We will share the presentation afterwards. If there's anything, please reach out and contact us, and we're happy to help. I wish you all a very good day and have a great start of the week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Tye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.